Welcome, everybody. Welcome, fellow patriots. Welcome, fellow deplorables. Welcome, fellow dregs to society. Welcome, all you rock dwellers. Welcome once again to the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network. And joining me today is the Doctor for the Republic, Dr. Right, Dr. Nasir Shaikh. Nasir, welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Hey, Rick, thank you so much.
And Dr. Shaikh, we do have our next guest with us. He's a longtime friend of the program. Please make him feel welcome.
Thank you, Rick. We have David Rubin, who is a former mayor of Shiloh, Israel, and the author of a new book, Trump and the Jews. David is the founder and president of Shiloh Israel Children's Fund, which he established after he and then his 3-year-old son were wounded in a terror attack. He can be found at his website, www.davidrubinisrael.com. David, welcome once again back to the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Well, thank you. Good to be with both of you.
Well, before we begin about the article that you wrote about Democratic candidates, 9/11, and obviously Congressman or Congressperson Ilhan Omar, give us an idea, what is the Shiloh Israel Children's Fund and why did you establish it?
Well, the Shiloh Israel Children's Fund was established after my 3-year-old son and I were wounded in a terrorist attack. And it was actually just 3 months after 9/11. And we were ambushed on the road. We were driving back from Jerusalem, and the car was ambushed by Islamic terrorists who were perched on the side of the road with AK-47 assault rifles, Palestinian authority terrorists, basically, from the Fatah terrorist organization. And I was shot in the leg immediately. My son was shot in the head. A bullet went into his head and through his neck, missing his brainstem by 1 millimeter.
Oh my.
So as a result of, without getting into all the details, all the gory details of the story, which is also quite miraculous because we did come out of it alive, both of us, and alive and well, I might add. And as a result of that whole trauma that my son went through as a young child, I established the Shiloh, or Shiloh we call it, Israel Children's Fund, basically to heal the trauma of the terror victim children through therapeutic and educational programs.
That's, out of tragedy, like you said, at least, you both survived. And that's something great to establish there to help. Like you said, there's so much unfortunate, evil that goes around the world. And, we need to have a strong, partner as Israel is, to us here in America. So, we thank you for that. David, one of the questions I've always wondered, and I try to let people know, first of all, a perspective that why is it that I think Dennis Prager talks about this as well, and it's something that most of the Jewish people, why do they, for example, at least on the American side, why do they sort of tend to be more liberal? Is that true, or is that, I know Dennis thinks it is. Why is it that they seem to be that way, or they vote that way, full well knowing that it's sort of sometimes when you think about where Black Americans are constantly voting for the Democratic side. So why is it that, most of the Jewish people, why are they always voting, towards the left or towards liberalism? Can you explain that, or is there a different story to it?
No, it's a very reasonable question. In fact, in my book, Trump and the Jews, I have 2 chapters that deal with that very question. I just got asked that question so many times over the years in all of my speaking tours and in churches and in places where Christians who tend to be conservative were very disturbed. And we have Orthodox Jews who are maybe 10% of the American population, which means basically the ones who are religious, and they tend to vote Republican. But but the overwhelming majority are very liberal. It's absolutely true. It's a fact, and all of the research that I explored in my book Trump and the Jews, that's what I found. And the more connected to their roots, the more they will lean towards the GOP. The trend and the pattern is very clear. And the problem is, Jews came to America in the early part of the 20th century. They worked very hard. They came in poverty. There was a lot of discrimination against them. Their response, and their correct response to that poverty and discrimination, wasn't days of rage. Their response was, let's work hard. And they worked hard. They focused on education, and they advanced. To the extent that the Jews in America tend to be the most successful religious group of all the religious groups in America in terms of successful professionally and financially. However, in the process of trying to fit in, trying to advance, they left their Judaic heritage behind. And that's very sad. But when you have a vacuum, something always comes in to take its place. In this case, the religion of liberalism took its place. And Jews like Chuck Schumer, Dianne Feinstein, and Gerald Nadler, and all the rest, who are ensconced in the Democratic Party, they haven't the slightest idea what Judaism says about particular issues, because their positions are based on liberalism, not Judaism.
All right, okay. And another thing I'd like to ask also, David, is in the years that you've been in sort of like, let's say, this political realm, where do you sort of see anti-Semitism in today's date? I mean, are you seeing a full-fledged rise on it, especially maybe in the last few years? Or there's some years that you felt it was there and that it sort of, wasn't as prevalent and it has its ups and downs? Or do you just see it continually a straight line, just going that it's increasing and increasing?
Well, for many decades in America, the anti-Semitism was mainly from the far right. It was from these small neo-Nazi groups. What has happened recently, and it's very disturbing, because you hear all of the criticism of President Trump and of the right wing, and calling them all kinds of names, and even ascribing anti-Semitism to President Trump, which is absolutely absurd. When he's, ask any Israeli, they'll tell you he's the greatest friend of the Jewish people in many, many years, as far as presidents go. But the fact is that I must say, the disturbing fact is that most of the anti-Semitism today comes from the far left.
No, you're absolutely correct. And one of the things I want to ask is that here we have Congressman Ilhan Omar, and I tell people all the time that I don't like hyphenation. Somebody asks me who I am, the first thing I tell them, I'm an American. After that, you want to know anything else? Yes, I'm a second-generation Muslim. And I tell people this. I've tweeted about this when I talk about Congressman Ilhan Omar, when I talk about Rashida Tlaib, when I talk about Congressman Keith Ellison, and any of the other people. They are not Muslims. I tell it to their face. I'd scream it at the top of my lungs on the top of a building. They are what I call Islamists. They are Islamists. They are absolutely radical, fanatical, jihadists, and unfortunately, they have been put into a place of power within the government confines of the United States of America in the House of Representatives. And now for Ilhan Omar to go before CARE, could you imagine if any Republican, any conservative would have gone in front of a David Duke or a Robert Spencer organization and given any type of speech? But you're absolutely right. This is what I call state-sponsored state-sponsored anti-Semitism is coming from Ilhan Omar. I know I've gone on my diatribe. I leave it to you to say, what is your thinking about this?
Well, I don't disagree with the word that you said, Nasir, and it's a reality. And CARE, the group that she spoke to in California, that Ilhan Omar spoke to, is an organization that is committed to jihadist Islam. In fact, their chairman, speaking off the cuff several years back, he referred to Islam as being the ultimate victor in the United States, that he sees jihadist Islam as being the future, that all Americans have to succumb to it. And so we're not talking a human rights organization. We're actually talking just the opposite of a human rights organization. It's an organization that supports the Islamic terrorist organizations. They're not looking to live peacefully as Americans and live their lives peacefully and in camaraderie and friendship with all other ethnic groups. And that's the issue here. So the Ilhan Omars and the Rashida Tlaibs and the people like that, I'm sure that they disturb you very greatly. And,
they do.
And the problem, as I see it, is not that they exist and that they say the things that they say, because I don't expect different from someone who believes in jihad. But I do expect different from the moderates in the Democratic Party, the shrinking group of moderates in the Democratic Party that still claim to be the leadership, but are silent when the anti-Semitic statements are made. And now we have the presidential candidates who are considered to be quite respectful or respected, like Beto O'Rourke and Bernie Sanders, who's leading the pack, and who refer to Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister who was just duly elected in very free and fair elections, calling him a racist. There's an old expression, I don't remember who said it, but name calling is the last refuge of non-thinkers. And
yes.
And I admit that President Trump did a lot of name calling during the debates, but the bottom line is that since he was elected, most of the name calling is coming in the other direction. It's against him, and it's totally unjustified. And so now they're doing the same thing to Benjamin Netanyahu because he was freely elected in Israel.
Here on the Conservative Commandos radio show, our guest is David Rubin. He's the former mayor of Shiloh, Israel, and the author of the new book, Trump and the Jews. David, we have to take a quick break. Could you hold on for just a few moments for us, please?
Absolutely.
And this is the Conservative Commandos radio show with Dr. Nasir Shaikh, and yours truly, Rick Trader. Don't go away. We will be right back right after this break.
I saw voter fraud with my own eyes. Now, people say, why didn't you report it to the authorities? Well, they were the ones doing it.
The integrity of one man, one vote doesn't apply at the Texas state legislature. There is no way to know if your representatives are voting for themselves.
Department, a Republican, reaches back to vote for Democrat Oliveira. Democrat Matt Reynolds votes for Republican England.
2 out of 3 voters nationwide believe that voter fraud is a serious problem in the U.S. today.
The process is rigged.
Both sides of the aisle are guilty.
Florida now has to tell the Department of Justice whether the state will comply with DOJ's demand to stop purging thousands of people from its voter rolls.
We have the sloppiest election system of any industrialized democracy.
Philadelphia flagged 50,000 duplicate registrations, so just think how many more slipped through.
It's almost impossible to detect. How do you get caught? You only get caught if you confess.
Election corruption is deeply embedded in America. Quote, election fraud is a crime that usually pays, unquote, writes Tracy Campbell in his book, Deliver the Vote, A History of Election Fraud, an American political tradition from 1742 to 2004. In 1742, the first Prime Minister of Britain in the American colonies, Robert Walpole, was forced to resign.
We have a right not to have our vote canceled out by someone who shouldn't be voting, someone who's an illegal alien, someone who's a felon not eligible to vote, someone who doesn't exist. If they vote, they cancel your vote out as much as if you're prevented from voting.
If this is going to be fixed, it's going to have to be a citizen effort. It comes down to, it's the same old question, if not now, when? If not us, then who?
This is huge. This is about the democracy and the principles of the United States of America. People say, but why you? Why you? Why? Well, why not? And if it starts with a fireman, if it starts with a sanitation worker, if it starts with a teacher or a nurse or a caretaker of the elderly, then so be it. It's got to start somewhere. But it's time we come together and fix this problem once and for all.
There is no serious person out there who would suggest somehow that you could even rig America's elections.
To say that it doesn't exist is an outright lie.
Serious allegations of voter fraud, the claims raising questions about the
Commerce Secretary Ron Brown and 32 others were on a military plane that crashed today in a violent storm. There are no known survivors at this time.
The U.S. Army was funded by the evil entity.
I saw voter fraud with my own eyes.
To say that it doesn't exist is an outright lie.
The process is rigged.
People die and fall for the right time. It's too late.
So it's incredibly important now that we draw a line and say, not on our watch.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Dr. Wright, Dr. Nasir Shaikh, and yours truly, Rick Trader. For rebroadcast of our show, please check out our website, ccrshow.com. That's ccrshow.com. You'll be able to find rebroadcast of our radio show, our TV show, a lot of great articles, and a lot of great information. Our guest this segment is David Rubin. He's the former mayor of Shiloh, Israel, and the author of the new book, Trump and the Jews. David, thank you for holding through that break. I really do appreciate your time. Well, David, you earlier in our conversation, you were saying that Donald Trump is a friend to the Jews. We, on the right at least, we do believe that Benjamin Netanyahu is a great friend of the United States. As you mentioned in the first part of the interview, Israel just went through its election. Bibi Netanyahu was reelected. Could you talk about that reelection and what you believe it will mean for Israeli-U.S. relationships moving forward?
Israel is a parliamentary democracy. So when people vote here, they're voting for direction. They're either going to vote for a conservative direction, or they're going to vote for the left, for a more liberal approach. And that's what we saw very much in this election. And we've seen it in several elections now, that the public clearly is moving more to the right, more towards a conservative view in life, and it's not just being strong on foreign policy, and it's not just not compromising over our little tiny country and not being willing to give it away to terrorists. It's not just those issues, even though those are very, very important issues, but it's also social issues. The country is moving in the direction of traditional marriage and families, which I know you can't talk about too much in the United States these days.
Well, we can talk about it here on Conservative Commandos, so don't worry about that. We're very comfortable talking about traditional values.
Yeah, and that's the direction that Israel is going in, and that's the direction that they voted in this particular election. So it was a clear mandate for Netanyahu to provide that direction.
Why is Netanyahu's victory, do you feel, such a harsh reaction for the Democrat Party here in the United States?
Well, look, the reality is that Netanyahu is conservative, and his coalition is even more conservative than he is, and that disturbs people on the left. So everyone knows that he has a very good relationship with President Trump, and so if President Trump is the most evil person in America, as perceived by certain Democrats. So they're going to have to say the same thing about Netanyahu if they want to be consistent. I think that's why you have, presidential candidates, calling him racist, and the latest is Ocasio-Cortez, from her vast experience, how she's done a real study of this, and she says that Netanyahu his election is proof of the spread of authoritarianism through the world. Authoritarians usually are not elected, and they're not elected in free and fair elections, and they don't have vast governing coalitions of several parties. Netanyahu does, and he was given a resounding victory. And I think that AOC just has to kind of accept that. And who knows, maybe that'll lead her to accept President Trump's election.
Well, I wouldn't criticize her experience if I were you. I bet she could make a mean margarita. But she's now cutting off aid or limiting aid to the Jewish state. I wanted to get your reaction to that.
Yeah, well, it doesn't surprise me. I'm sure that she and her cohorts, Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib, would agree that they have to cut back aid on for Israel and for all American allies. Anyone who doesn't believe in their far left agenda. So they would love to cut off aid to those countries.
David, a couple of years back, I remember you and I having a conversation about election interference. And it had nothing to do with Donald Trump. It had nothing to do with the Russians. But it had a lot to do with Barack Obama sending people and money to Israel to try to defeat Benjamin Netanyahu in the last election. Did you see any of that interference this time around?
No, actually I didn't. That was back in 2015.
Right.
And they were funneling funds from the State Department to a couple of organizations that were active in Israel with an anyone but Netanyahu campaign. And it all came out afterwards, and there was actually a hearing in congressional committee to discuss those charges. So it could be that they realized that they went a little bit too far. But right now the State Department has changed a bit. It's not the State Department of Bill Clinton, of Barack Obama. This is the State Department of Donald Trump, and they've thrown out the anti-Israel people from the State Department, thank God, and I'm thankful for that. America and Israel have ties that go way back.
Okay, I would say to the beginning of the formation
of the George Washington, right. John Adams, John Quincy Adams, Abraham Lincoln, Harry Truman, and other presidents who were very positive about strengthening America's relations with Israel. Now, I know I mentioned some presidents who were alive and active before the state of Israel was reestablished, but they were connected with biblical Israel. These presidents understood the importance of those ties, that it's a connection of values. And today we have a similar situation where President Trump has taken the Obama approach of cozying up to terrorists and cozying up to Iran, which is trying to take over the Middle East and the world. And President Trump is doing a 180-degree turn and doing a very good job of it.
Here on the Conservative Commandos radio show, our guest is David Rubin. He's a former mayor of Shiloh, Israel. He is also the author of the book, Trump and the Jews. David, I know it's late there in Israel. I hope you have time for one more question for me. When the people of Israel hear what is coming from Congresswoman Omar, Congresswoman Tlaib, Congresswoman Cortez, what is their reaction? What is the reaction in Israel when they hear American congresswomen or men saying the things that they say about their prime minister, Bibi Netanyahu, and the fact that they want to cut off to aid to Israel, and they seem to be the radical faction of Islam? What is Israel talking about these people? What are they saying about these people?
Well, we've seen what has happened in Europe, where the spread of radical jihadist Islam has almost destroyed Western Europe. It's a terrible plague in Western Europe, and we've seen the rise of anti-Semitism, and terrorist attacks on in all kinds of people, and so there are attempts to silence anyone who speaks out against it, and that includes Muslims who have the courage to speak out against that radical jihadist Islam. Israelis understand it because we live in a very bad neighborhood, called the Middle East, where there are a lot of people who want to kill us.
Tough part of town.
That's right. Hey,
but you've got a great piece of real estate there.
Right. Well, there is some very nice real estate.
No, there is.
But the people who are around us, the people who are surrounded by Hamas and Hezbollah terrorists and the Fatah terrorists and Iran, that is ensconced now in Syria and trying to destroy us from there. So we understand it. We understand when there are people like Ilhan Omar who are apologists for that particular approach of the Islamic terrorism. Nobody's accusing her of being a terrorist herself, but she certainly supports.
Well, when she supports Hamas,
Did you hear what I just said? She certainly supports that ideology.
Right.
And the support comes from somewhere. So, and I know the terrorists that shot and wounded me and my son had support that they were getting. I know for a fact that they were getting a lot of support from other people who weren't actually committing the terrorist attacks, but they were supporting it financially. Now, I mean, we could define it however we wish.
Right.
But the fact is that she is at the very least an apologist for the Hamas terrorists.
I think she's more than that. She's raising money for CAR, which is supporting Hamas, which is a terrorist group. I I'm waiting for the day, or I'm hoping for the day, that CAR itself is declared a terrorist group. Hey, David, we're coming up against a hard break. David Rubin, former mayor of Shiloh, Israel, author of the new book, Trump and the Jews. David, please tell our audience how they could get your book and to follow your work.
All right. Well, Trump and the Jews, to get the book, Trump and the Jews, all they have to do is go to Amazon.com and just type in Trump and the Jews, and they will have it in a short amount of time, I'm sure. The other way is to get more information about Trump and the Jews or any of my other books. They can go to my website, which is davidrubinisrael.com. And I might add, if people want to find out more about the work of the Shiloh, or as Americans would say, Shiloh Israel Children's Fund, all they have to do is go to that website, which is Shiloh, Shiloh, IsraelChildren.org.
David Rubin, thank you so much for joining us. Always appreciate the time you spend with us. Take care and God bless.
Well, it's a pleasure meeting you, sir.
Thank you, Nasir.
And this is the Conservative Commandos radio show with Dr. Shaikh and yours truly, Rick Trader. Don't go away. We'll be right back with our next guest.
Have you been leasing a property for your business or renting storage space? Are you tired of paying rent year after year? Call the experts at General Steel to own a building at up to 30% off now.
I'd been renting a building and paying someone else's mortgage, but General Steel showed me how I could own a space tailored to the needs of my business and for less than renting.
Call General Steel now at the number on your screen for our current building specials and to price your metal building system today.
My building's the dream I've had since finishing my house 14 years ago. I've been using it for a garage, workshop, and storage area for my tools and equipment, and I can't believe how great it turned out.
The economy is improving, and the price of steel is expected to rise. Stop waiting. It could cost you thousands. Call General Steel now to see how you can own for less than you thought. Stop waiting to start your business or expand your operation. Call General Steel now.
Call 877-484-7002.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call low-cost airlines. Their prices are direct from the airlines, and they're so low you can't find these fares published anywhere. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and great package deals anywhere around the world. Wherever you want to go, they can help you get there cheaply and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call right now for the lowest travel prices anywhere and for great last-minute travel deals too.
Call 888-431-0562. That's 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562.
Friend, do you remember when it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank to expand a business, go on vacation, or buy a new car? Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business, according to The Secret War, a shocking new research report. I just read it. And folks, I was amazed to learn why banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get The Secret War free. Just call the number on the screen, no charge, from the folks at Swiss America, and get this. Did you know simply spending cash today may be enough to have you branded as a potential criminal? That's right. The new war on cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. The Secret War is yours free, so call the number on the screen and you can tell them Pat Boone gave you the number.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Dr. Wright, Dr. Nasir Shaikh, and yours truly, Rick Trader. Want to give a shout out to the folks who listen to us on radio stations in Jacksonville, Tampa, and the Villages, Florida, Las Vegas and Reno, Macon, Georgia, Lancaster and Pittsburgh, Boulder and Colorado Springs, Milwaukee, Long Beach, California, and Scene, on the AUN television network in Northern California, in places like San Jose and San Francisco. And with that, Nasir, we do have our next guest with us. Please make her feel welcome.
Thank you, Rick. We have Elaine Parker. She's the president of Job Creators Network Foundation and the chief communications officer of Job Creators Network. She's been a frequent guest on nationally syndicated radio shows such as Dennis Prager and Mike Gallagher. Her op-eds have appeared in hundreds of newspapers, some of Washington Examiner, Real Clear Policy, and various other national publications. Prior to joining JCN, Elaine was a public relations manager at Chrysler, also independent communications consultant, developing media strategies and tactics in corporate litigation and other communications as well. She also did work for high-profile clients, which we've utilized, or at least I've utilized quite often, 5 Hour Energy. So, anyways, Elaine, welcome back to the Conserve Commandos radio show.
Thanks for having me.
Well, great. Well, we're going to be speaking to you about an article that you wrote about the numbers prove that this economy is not letting up, even though we're being told constantly by the mainstream media and the alt-left media that it's about to crash, it's about to crash. But before we begin, give our viewers, both that are listening and watching, what is the Job Creators Network Foundation, and how is it that it's sort of something that you pursued and got involved with?
So the Job Creators Network is a national small business advocacy organization, and we are founded by Home Depot co-founder Bernie Marcus. And now you're thinking to yourself, Home Depot, right? Huge corporation. Well, back in 1979, when Bernie founded Home Depot, he started with 2 stores. He was actually a small business.
But this wasn't Bernie Sanders, right?
This is our Bernie Marcus, not Bernie. We're very careful not to mix them up.
Right.
But it's hard to imagine Home Depot as a small business, but he had the same struggles with figuring out how to make payroll and how to pay his vendors and how to sell a better product and beat his competitors. All the same things that small business owners go through now. But he also took time to talk to his employees about how government policies impacted not only the business, but their jobs. And so he created the Job Creators Network as an education tool for small business owners who join the job creators to educate their employees about how public policies impact their jobs so we can create a better educated electorate.
Wow, fantastic. Now, you write basically that last Friday marked the monthly ritual of Jobs Day. So give us an idea of the perspective coming from you and your organization. What is the outlook for jobs, job creation, what's out there in the marketplace? Is it sort of the black cloud hanging out there like we've been told, or is it, that's past and we're looking at areas of sunshine coming through?
Well, the black clouds that you're talking about is the perception that the liberal news media continues to try to paint on the economy. And the reality is very different from the perception that they're trying to paint out there. We continue to see job numbers. For March, it was 196,000 jobs were created. Yesterday marked April 15th, and for those of you who pay taxes, most of us, all of us, it's finally passed us. But it was the first season that we actually had the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act for 2018 to see how the economy did under the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. And we continue to see record unemployment. We've got 50-year unemployment. We have record lows for Blacks, Hispanics, women. Every demographic group out there is experiencing record unemployment lows. Over 5 million, almost 6 million jobs have been created since the election of 2016. And there are now more jobs available than people to fill them. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah, I heard it was like 7.1 million jobs are out there. And the majority that I heard, I believe someone was saying that you don't need a 4-year college degree for these jobs. Is that correct?
Some of them you don't. I mean, the reality is we're seeing wage increase faster than they have in a decade. And when you dig deep and you look at where those increases are happening, they're happening in non-supervisory positions. Blue-collar jobs are actually increasing at a faster rate than white-collar jobs. And that's the demand for labor. And we're seeing companies, just through the forces of the free market, increase their starting wages. 2 years ago, we saw companies like Walmart do it. A few weeks ago, we saw Bank of America increase their starting wage for bank tellers to $20 an hour. Those are not degree positions in many cases.
Now, you also write in here, I think you mentioned too about the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. Give us are the numbers there right now sort of to see how that sort of has sparked, this growth spurt and, job creation? Or do we sort of still have to wait to figure this out? Because, you're hearing that this did not help the individual person, that these were the cuts that were given to the huge corporations. But from what I heard, a lot of those corporations use these tax cuts to give those $1,500 and $2,000 bonus. I have a friend of mine, and a brother-in-law, I might add, who did get a $1,500 bonus, plus he got a $300 gift card. So a total of $1,800 back. And he does not like Trump at all. So I asked him, I said, did you give the money back or did you keep it? He is silent, so I know what he's talking about. But give us an idea. How has that really helped to create and spur this job growth?
Sure. Well, as you mentioned, the bonuses, about 6 million people got bonuses right away. We heard news story after news story early in
the crumbs, right? These crumbs?
Yeah, it was called crumbs by our good friend Nancy Pelosi.
Right.
But 6 million people got wage increases and bonuses as a result of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, and many of that were from big corporations. As the year went on, though, we started to see small businesses get a better understanding of how this tax bill was going to impact them. And there are two major provisions in there that was helping small business. And remember, small business drives 2/3 of all new job growth. So they have a very important role in this. And the two provisions that help small business was a 20% deduction on their business earnings and also immediate expensing. So they're able to shield about 1/5 of their earnings through the deduction. Then they've been able to take those earnings, reinvest them in their business. And the second provision is they're able to immediately expense any capital investments. So for instance, we have a small business owner who's a member of Job Creators Network in Northern Illinois. She's a small manufacturer. She was able to take her savings and invest it into a $500,000 piece of new machinery. She had to hire new people to run that machinery. She gave wage increases to her employees. And this is the best part to me, is that she was able to also pay 100% of her employees' health insurance. In today's terms, that's a big deal.
That is.
Here on the Conservative Commandos radio show, our guest is Elaine Parker. She is the president of the Job Creators Network Foundation. Elaine, we have to take a quick break. Could you hold on for us just for a few moments for us, please? And you are listening and watching the Conservative Commandos radio show with Dr. Wright, Dr. Nasir Shaikh, and yours truly, Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. As I mentioned, our guest this segment is Elaine Parker with the Job Creators Network Foundation. We're talking about the numbers prove this economy is not letting up. Don't go away. We will be back with more right after this break.
AM/FM 24/7 Roku channel broadcasts all of our shows on demand. To ensure reliability, we store and stream our content on the same servers as Netflix and Amazon. Our Roku channel is free to use, and anyone owning one of the more than 10 million Roku devices can watch our channel at no cost whatsoever. If you have a television show or are thinking about producing a show, you can be a part of AM/FM 24/7's Roku channel. Watch our great shows on your Roku device. It's free and more reliable than cable TV. Are you stuck with a timeshare? Did you attend the presentation and were seduced and enticed into buying that great vacation and investment? Now you're in the terrible position of trying to figure out a way to get out of that mess. You're not alone. For over 15 years, BuyYourTimeshare.com has been helping people like yourself get out of timeshare ownership. The fact is there is no resale market. Unscrupulous telemarketers call you and say they have buyers waiting, and the next thing that happens is you give them hundreds of dollars for an ad, and you'll never hear from them again. Another fact is that an identical timeshare to yours is being offered on eBay for $1, and no one is buying it. If you want out of your timeshare, I urge you to go to buyyourtimeshare.com or call them at 877-94-HELP-ME. That number again is 877-94-HELP-ME. Buyyourtimeshare.com. That's buyyourtimeshare.com. 877-94-HELP-ME.
Dish TV is better than cable TV. Here's why. Dish has the nation's lowest TV price, along with an award-winning DVR that can skip commercials, record 8 shows at once, and get access to thousands of movies at your fingertips. Cable simply can't even compare. So the smart choice is to cut the cable and get Dish. Plus, you get all these great TV features, free HD DVR upgrade, free installation, and free movie channels. Say goodbye to cable and get more with Dish TV. 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. As an added bonus, you can switch to Dish now and receive a $50 Visa gift card. So call now and get Dish TV. Call 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. That's 877-290-7764. Limited time offer, 24-month commitment and credit qualification required. Cancellation fee, monthly equipment fees, and other restrictions apply. Promotion can change at any time.
And welcome back. Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Dr. Wright, Dr. Nasir Shaikh, and yours truly, Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. And just as a reminder, please like us, friend us, and follow us on Facebook and on Twitter. And for rebroadcasts of our shows, check out our website, ccrshow.com. That's ccrshow.com. Our guest this segment is Elaine Parker. She is the president of the Job Creators Network Foundation and the Chief Communication Officer of the Job Creators Network. Elaine, thank you for holding through that break. We really do appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
Well, you know, Elaine, you wanted to make me cry. You and Nasir were talking about April 15th. Not only is it tax day, it is the day each and every year that my car insurance comes due. So it's not a great day here in this household. But it is a great day in America. In fact, earlier today I was watching Fox, and I was watching Bloomberg, and they were talking about the Dow has hit a record high for the year. And we've been told for quite some time, this is a bubble, it's going to burst, you know, watch where you invest your money. But this Trump economy just keeps on going. So I don't know if you're that in tune to the stock market, but do you have any idea why the market is continuing to move forward?
Well, I mean, you continue to see the job market strong. You know, companies are announcing earnings. Obviously, some of the companies have strong earnings to announce. But, you know, where our heart is and where our focus is on the small business piece of it, and that's because that's where most of the new jobs are being created. In this economy, though, we're seeing, which is even better, is new business startups are growing at a faster rate than they were under the previous administration. They're up 16%. And for a long time, we had more business closures than startups. So that's a very nice reversal that we're seeing. But in regards to tax day and sort of the misconceptions out there about the bubble bursting and, oh, the dark clouds are coming, that is a narrative that's being pushed by the media and the opponents that were against the tax cuts. And that's unfortunate because, you know, they say sometimes perception is reality. The reality is that 80% of Americans got tax cuts yesterday. And they started the average family of 4 received a tax cut of $3,000. Under the tax bill, they doubled the standard deduction. For married couples, it went from $12,000 a year to $24,000 a year. And what that means for people who aren't, as well versed in taxes, is that the first $24,000 of the money that you earn is tax-free. And so it went from 12 to 24 before you ever start paying taxes. And they doubled the child tax credit. So we used to get a child tax credit of $1,000. It's now $2,000. And what a credit means versus a deduction is a direct subtraction off of your total tax bill. It's way better than just a deduction. And so for a family of 4 with 2 kids, that's why we're seeing the tax savings that we're seeing. Unfortunately, the news media and the folks who are against the tax bill have been putting out a message out there that it is been a tax increase. And so we've spent the better part of the last year focused on educating people about how tax cuts are working and how they're impacting people. And we actually have a website called taxcutswork.com that your listeners and viewers can go to, and they can actually calculate their tax savings between 2017 and 2018, and they can actually see the dollar amount that they saved.
I was going to ask you, I wonder if that Job Creators Network has a new member by the name of Bernie Sanders. Apparently, he's had a couple of good years. Bernie Sanders is a millionaire. And by the way, Elaine, did you see his town hall last night?
I did.
I wanted to get your reflections of it. And also, Bernie Sanders is saying, well, I don't like paying taxes. I'm not going to volunteer to pay any extra taxes, but I want you all to pay extra taxes out there. Also, we've got Beto O'Rourke out there who's saying, well, I don't know that America is ever going to be great again. I don't know that it's ever been great. And just wanted to get your impression of people making comments like, yeah, we want to raise your taxes, and I don't know if America's ever going to be great again. I don't know that it's ever been great. Your thoughts?
You know, my thoughts on Bernie Sanders being a millionaire is congratulations to him, because that's what this system allows. You can write a book, you can sell a product, and if the public wants it, then good for you. You've done well. And I hope that we can all find something to sell that makes all of us millionaires. But in this country, the opportunity to do that is here. And in a lot of countries, there's not. We all have the opportunity to achieve our own American dream. Bernie Sanders obviously wrote a great book. He was telling us all.
You think so?
He thinks so. Apparently, a lot of people think so. He's a millionaire over it. Right. And best of all, he benefited from the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act.
Well, one thing he didn't benefit from making charitable contributions, because in 2017 he only donated 3.2% of his income to charitable contributions and only 1% to charity in 2016. So he certainly didn't take advantage of that angle. But one other point I wanted to touch on with you is, okay, we've heard of how these tax cuts have benefited the workers out there. How has it benefited businesses?
Well, businesses have greatly benefited from the standpoint of small business, and that's that small business tax deduction we were talking about. It's a 20% tax deduction. It's the first time ever that our tax code has recognized what we call small business pass-throughs. Those are like S-corps, partnerships, sole proprietorships, where their business income passes through to their individual tax statement. And it allows them to shield some of their business earnings, 20% of their business earnings, and allows them to reinvest back into their companies. And our members are small business owners, small business, we call them Main Street small business owners. And they're reinvesting, they're hiring people, they are increasing wages. We've got a member up in Somerset, Pennsylvania, rural part of Pennsylvania.
Where Nasir comes from.
He was able to double the size of his lab. It's a chemical company. Wow. He was able to double the size of the lab. He gave wage increases. And he was also, for the first time, after being in business for so many years, able to implement a 401k savings plan for his employees. He feels it's really important to create an anchor in the community to keep young people from leaving a rural community. And that's just such an important point. He couldn't have done it without the tax cuts. He couldn't have done it without that immediate expensing. He said that's been a game changer for him and allowed him to hire 29 new people.
Wow.
Elaine, before I let you go, one last question, if I could. Minimum wage. We hear this big cry, we got to push the minimum wage to $15 an hour. But you're already saying there's surplus jobs out there. And because of their surplus jobs, businesses have to actually increase what they're willing to pay a person per hour. I just wanted to get your reflection on minimum wages.
This is how the free market is supposed to work. The demand is high, the labor is low, and therefore the wages are increasing, and they're increasing at a faster rate than they have in a decade. I mentioned earlier that Bank of America has increased their minimum wage to $20 an hour. That's an incredible starting wage for a job that doesn't require a 4-year degree.
That's fantastic. Elaine Parker, president of the Job Creators Network Foundation. We want to thank you so much for joining us. But before you go, please tell our audience how they could follow you, what you write, learn more about the Job Creators Network and Job Creators Network Foundation.
Sure. Your listeners and your viewers can go to jobcreatorsnetwork.com, and they can join us there. They can find out all the information they want about us.
Well, Elaine Parker, again, thank you so much for joining us. Take care, and God bless.
Thank you.
Take care, Elaine.
And this is the Conservative Commandos radio show with Dr. Wright, Dr. Nasir Shaikh, and yours truly, Rick Trader.
AM/FM 24/7 Roku channel broadcasts all of our shows on demand. To ensure reliability, we store and stream our content on the same servers as Netflix and Amazon. Our Roku channel is free to use, and anyone owning one of the more than 10 million Roku devices can watch our channel at no cost whatsoever. If you have a television show or are thinking about producing a show, you can be a part of AM/FM 24/7's Roku channel. Watch our great shows on your Roku device. It's free and more reliable than cable TV. Are you stuck with a timeshare? Did you attend the presentation and were seduced and enticed into buying that great vacation and investment? Now you're in the terrible position of trying to figure out a way to get out of that mess. You're not alone. For over 15 years, BuyYourTimeshare.com has been helping people like yourself get out of timeshare ownership. The fact is there is no resale market. Unscrupulous telemarketers call you and say they have buyers waiting, and the next thing that happens is you give them hundreds of dollars for an ad, and you'll never hear from them again. Another fact is that an identical timeshare to yours is being offered on eBay for $1, and no one is buying it. If you want out of your timeshare, I urge you to go to buyyourtimeshare.com or call them at 877-94-HELP-ME. That number again is 877-94-HELP-ME. Buyyourtimeshare.com. That's buyyourtimeshare.com. 877-94-HELP-ME.
Dish TV is better than cable TV. Here's why. Dish has the nation's lowest TV price, along with an award-winning DVR that can skip commercials, record 8 shows at once, and get access to thousands of movies at your fingertips. Cable simply can't even compare. So the smart choice is to cut the cable and get Dish. Plus, you get all these great TV features, free HD DVR upgrade, free installation, and free movie channels. Say goodbye to cable and get more with Dish TV. 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. As an added bonus, you can switch to Dish now and receive a $50 Visa gift card. So call now and get Dish TV. Call 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. That's 877-290-7764. Limited time offer, 24-month commitment and credit qualification required. Cancellation fee, monthly equipment fees, and other restrictions apply. Promotion can change at any time.
And once again, thank you for staying with us. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader. My co-host today is the Dr. Wright, the doctor for the Republic, Dr. Nasir Shaikh. And Nasir, we do have our next guest with us. Please make her feel welcome.
Thank you, Rick. Vicki Alger. She's a senior fellow at the Independent Women's Forum. She's also the author of a book called Failure, the Federal Miseducation of American Children. She's served in various federal policy and educational policy matters for the Trump White House. She's also been on numerous shows, Fox News, Wall Street Journal, USA Today. You name the show, she's been on it. Vicki, welcome to the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Well, thank you. It's my pleasure. I really appreciate you having me.
Well, great. Well, there's a few articles that you've written here, but let's start off with one. One is you wrote Millennials and the Moral Case for Free Markets. Before we get into that, some of our new listeners and also viewers here on our AUN network in California, give us an idea of what are you doing or what's being done at the Independent Women's Forum? What do they do?
Well, Independent Women's Forum, we help inform the debate. As you know, the default is so often set to, if there's a problem, we need more government, higher taxes, more regulation. We have to, in a sense, reboot. And what IWF does is we show the alternatives. And pretty much if there is a problem, liberty is going to be the answer. And what IWF helps people do is kind of connect the dots to see why liberty is always a better than answer than more intrusive, expensive government.
Well, perfect segue into your article there, The Moral Case for Free Markets. So this is one of those things where, you talk about the different generations, the millennials and Generation Z. What would we do if we didn't have any consonants? I mean,
what are we going to do after Z? What are we going to call them after Z?
Well, we'll probably put a little A or B after them, Generation ZA or Generation ZB or whatever, who knows. But the thing is that what's amazing that I find is that they say that there was a poll taken that 4 out of 10, so 40% of millennials feel that socialism is acceptable. And you also say there's a poll there that 3 out of 10 who basically claim to be, millennial conservatives or Republicans basically have that same answer. So, when you're talking, one more and you're basically at even basically, on this demographic. And do you think the reason is because that part of history has been whitewashed from history in our schools? It's not really being taught, and they just sort of put this romanticism out on some of these murderous dictators. Like, kids are wearing Che t-shirts out there, basically saying, he's a lover, not a fighter. I mean, come on.
I think there's a huge part of the mystery solved would be that, no, we're not teaching accurate history. So we always have to look at that. And this is what parents can do right now, because we don't wake up and see these poll results magically, mysteriously when young people get to college. This is happening, my goodness, for those of you who live in California, I don't have to tell you, look what's going on with the quote-unquote health standards in the sex ed. They're starting as early as 4 and 5 years old. So parents, look at what is being taught in your children's classrooms, watch those textbooks. But I think we should also stand back too, and what do these young people what have they been exposed to? They have had, their parents subsidize them their whole lives. Mm-hmm. They've had their schooling paid for by their parents and John and Jane Q taxpayer most of their lives. They go to college. So when people talk about socialism and just taking care of people, well, they've been beneficiaries the better part, if not all, of their lives. So this seems perfectly fine. Isn't that how we've always done it? We just need more of it. So that's where folks like us who are on the pro-liberty, limited government side of things have to step in and talk with them about what do you really want to achieve, and say this is how free markets and free people can achieve those better than bureaucratic, bloated government.
Okay, right. So Vicki, one of the other questions I had to ask is that you basically write in one of your articles here is that more than political necessity, the moral case for capitalism must take center stage. In other words, we should be basically teaching this to our children at an earlier age. And I would basically dare say that probably in the 80s and the 90s, where we probably made the economic case for capitalism, I don't think we made the moral case for capitalism. Could you expound on that a little bit? What's it going to take for us to make the moral case for capitalism?
Well, I think you make a really good point, because we did talk about the economics, and in terms of economics and just the basic math, well, of course, free markets win hands down. But people can eschew math by saying, well, it's too hard for free markets. There are some people left behind. We need a safety net. And of course, that's the segue into bigger, more intrusive government. What we should be saying instead is, let's take the problem of poverty. Let's look at how you make people truly wealthy and self-sufficient. Is you grow the economy so that everybody can participate, not just find jobs, but ultimately be entrepreneurial. And that's something that we're seeing in spades with millennials and Generation Z members, is they want to found companies, and they have a profit motive. They do want to make money. They enjoy the conveniences of the free market, to be sure, but they also have a very strong philanthropic sense. Whether it's we want to make sure that people in developing countries have shoes, clean drinking water, clean environment, what have you. And they're seeing entrepreneurship as the gateway to accomplish all of those goals. So I think if we can focus on that, because you can't reconcile promoting innovation and entrepreneurship with big, bloated, overtax, overspend, overregulate government. So I think that's something that will really resonate with them, particularly as they're, getting their, food delivered, and all sorts of taking advantage of all sorts of amenities the free market has to offer them.
Well, I want to take this segue. You talked about basically, the millennials, and where are we going to formulate these young minds? How are we going to basically give them conservative ideas about liberty, freedom, individualism, all of these? And in one of your articles that you wrote, Wisconsin schools of choice get more bang for every educational buck. I guess we've all known about this. Wasn't it true that almost one of the first acts that President Obama did when he came into office was that he closed down the voucher program for a school that I think there was 100 to maybe 150 girls. I think they were of minorities, mostly Black Black American girls, and they shut that program down, whereas his two daughters got to go to one of the most prestigious schools that are out there. And isn't this what leftists do all the time? They lecture to us about sending kids to public schools, but when you look at them, almost all the academics, Hollywood hypocrites, the people in Washington, D.C., their kids are going to gated community schools that are top-notch.
No, that's absolutely true. The hypocrisy is really stunning. What President Obama did almost right out of the gate, as you said, is he and his leftist friends in Congress tried to kill the DC Opportunity Scholarship Program. It's the DC voucher program. And this is something that's interesting. The U.S. Department of Education actually has a department called What Works. It's a slim department because one of the only programs that actually works is the DC voucher program.
Sorry,
so let's go ahead and kill that.
Oh, Lord.
But President Trump, thankfully, that program is up and running, and it has sustainable funding thanks to President Trump and some great members in Congress. So that program is up and running and is safe now.
Well, this is something that I learned, and this is one thing that, Rick and I, is that every time we have guests on the show, is that there's always these few nuggets that we always learn and we can put into our tool belt, so to speak, that when we've got to basically, when we're out there talking with people and you're faced with a question, you can basically sling it out there. And one was, I had no idea, but basically you talk about with Wisconsin, I mean, this is it's the oldest voucher program in the United States. You would have thought that would have been in Washington, D.C. or someplace up in the Northeast.
Oh, it's the longest running modern voucher program. Yeah, it sure is. Maine and Vermont have actually had vouchers since the late 1800s.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow.
Not that you'd hear about it from those folks.
No,
huh?
absolutely not.
Here on the Conservative Commandos radio show, our guest is Vicki Alger. She's a senior fellow at one of my favorite organizations in Washington, and that's the Independent Women's Forum. Hey, Vicki, we have to take a quick break. Could you hold on for just a couple of moments for us?
Absolutely.
And this is the Conservative Commandos radio show with Dr. Wright, the doctor for the Republic, Dr. Nasir Shaikh, and yours truly, Rick Trader. Don't go away. We'll be right back, and we're going to pick up our conversation of millennials and the moral case for free markets. Don't go away. We will be right back.
I saw voter fraud with my own eyes. Now, people say, why didn't you report it to the authorities? Well, they were the ones doing it.
Elkins goes to vote for merit.
The integrity of one man, one vote doesn't apply at the Texas state legislature. There is no way to know if your representatives are voting for themselves.
Parton, a Republican, reaches back to vote for Democrat Oliveira. Democrat Matt Reynolds votes for Republican England.
2 out of 3 voters nationwide believe that voter fraud is a serious problem in the U.S. today.
The process is rigged.
Both sides of the aisle are guilty.
Florida now has to tell the Department of Justice whether the state will comply with DOJ's demand to stop purging thousands of people from its voter rolls.
We have the sloppiest election system of any industrialized democracy.
Philadelphia flagged 50,000 duplicate registrations, so just think how many more slipped through.
It's almost impossible to detect.
How do you get caught? You only get caught if you confess.
Election corruption is deeply embedded in America. Quote, election fraud is a crime that usually pays, unquote, writes Tracy Campbell in his book, Deliver the Vote, A History of Election Fraud, an American political tradition from 1742 to 2004. In 1742, the first Prime Minister of Britain in the American colonies, Robert Walpole, was forced to resign.
We have a right not to have our vote canceled out by someone who shouldn't be voting, someone who's an illegal alien, someone who's a felon not eligible to vote, someone who doesn't exist. If they vote, they cancel your vote out as much as if you're prevented from voting.
If this is going to be fixed, it's going to have to be a citizen effort. It comes down to, it's the same old question, if not now, when? If not us, then who?
This is huge. This is about the democracy and the principles of the United States of America. People say, but why you? Why you? Why? Well, why not? And if it starts with a fireman, if it starts with a sanitation worker, if it starts with a teacher or a nurse or a caretaker of the elderly, then so be it. It's got to start somewhere. But it's time we come together and fix this problem once and for all.
There is no serious person out there who would suggest somehow that you could even rig America's elections.
To say that it doesn't exist is an outright lie.
Serious allegations of voter fraud. The claims raising questions about the
Commerce Secretary Ron Brown and 32 others were on a military plane that crashed today in a violent storm. There are no known survivors at this time.
The U.S. Army was funded by the evil entity.
I saw voter fraud with my own eyes.
To say that it doesn't exist is an outright lie.
The process is rigged.
People who die leave all through the life. It's too brutal.
So it's incredibly important now that we draw a line and say, not on our watch.
And thank you for staying with us. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader. My co-host today is Dr. Nasir Shaikh. And our guest this segment is Vicki Alger. She's a senior fellow at the Independent Women's Forum. And Vicki has written a couple of interesting articles we're discussing. One is Millennials and the Moral Case for Free Speech. And the other is Wisconsin Schools of Choice get a more bang for the educational buck. Vicki, thank you for holding through that break. We appreciate your time.
Oh, happy to.
Vicki, in your article, the first article about millennials and the moral case for free markets, you write in here, and you were talking about millennials and socialism. So if socialism to millennials is Denmark, not Venezuela, the fact for Denmark to work, the whole original socialist model had to be reformed in a way to empower that. Well, Vicki, when I read that article, read it poorly because I'm not wearing my glasses today, it made me ask this question. What kind of an economic giant is Denmark in the first place? Because I can't remember the last time I actually bought or purchased any product that came out of Denmark. So tell me a little bit about Denmark's economy and why should that even be held as a model for these young socialists?
Well, I don't think they're thinking in terms of Denmark as an economic power, global powerhouse. I'm trying to think of where it would land on the global rankings, and I don't believe it lands in the top 10. I'm not sure if it would be in the top 20 right about now. Now, to be sure, it's a beautiful country. The people are lovely. But when millennials are thinking about socialism, they're not thinking about the full implications of what a full socialist country would be. They actually think it's possible that you could have a country like Denmark without all the nastiness that we see in Venezuela. And the reason why you can have a Denmark is because where it does flourish, it has very good free market economic policies. Now, of course, it has, policies such as high taxes for certain things, universal government-run health care, government preschool, all of these, happy clappy sounding things. But absent its free market, you would not be able to have the wealth, the tax base to support it. And if the taxes got too high, by the way, guess where the wealthy would go? I think it's very interesting to note, in a different piece I wrote about Elizabeth Warren's free college, and this ultra millionaires tax. Well, Europe has tried schemes like that, for decades, and even Europe has abandoned those sorts of tax schemes that you would need to even, start an enterprise, the sort of socialist enterprise. But you can't sustain it because the wealthy leave and go on to make money elsewhere.
Vicki, you and Nasir, in the first part of the interview, were talking about what kids are not being taught today. And one of the things I would say is they're not being taught how to succeed in life. We could also talk about what they are being taught. And I'll tell you something else that triggered a thought. We had a guest here on the Conservative Commandos radio show the other day talking about education, and that when Jimmy Carter started the Department of Education, the United States was #1 in academics. Now we're like 17th. I mean, all the money that has been dumped into education. And we hear about these crazy things that kids are being taught today. Do you have a few examples, maybe a couple of your pet peeves, what they're being taught rather than reading, math, and science?
Oh, gosh. Let me start with, I would say, I'm going to start with something controversial. And not controversial for the same reasons you would think. I think we have a problem with death by 1,000 paper cuts. And for example, state lawmakers who would say that they support parental choice in education, so on and so forth, they typically tend to sign on to programs, well, let's teach character education in the schools. Let's teach financial literacy. And this little an hour of coding, because it's Career Technical Education Month or something. We have to stop doing that to the schools. First and foremost, we should just stick to academics. I don't want any sort of value judgments, because how you balance your checkbook, how you live your life, much less what's going on in the disaster that's California with sex education, that's for parents and families. And I think we could take it back even farther. And here's where we get even more controversial. Why do we have to send our children to institutionalized school? Why don't we let parents decide what they're taught, when they're taught it, so on and so forth? And if parents are happy, great. That's better than any overpriced, federally mandated, quote-unquote, accountability scheme in my book.
Well, we can dovetail that with what you just said, Vicki, into the other article you wrote about Wisconsin School of Choice. You're talking this article about bang for the buck, how much better the children in charter schools and private schools are doing than in public schools, and they actually are getting less funding, but they're doing better in their grades.
Just more proof that competition works. This is a study that was just released by Dr. Corey DeAngelis with the Reason Foundation and a fellow at the Cato Institute. And he did something really fascinating. He looked at Wisconsin as you know, we talked about before. It has the oldest modern running voucher program in the country, started in 1990. It's also had independent public charter schools since 1994. So we have a really diverse education marketplace in Wisconsin. Mm-hmm. Private schools and charter schools each get at least 25% less per pupil funding than district public schools. And wouldn't you know it, both of those schools, private and independent public charter, their students do better on the state standards test. And that is just some really objective, quantifiable evidence that competition works, and we need to be putting the real education experts back in charge, which is children's parents.
You know, Vicki, it's also more proof that just throwing money and buku buckets load of money at education doesn't make children smarter, doesn't help them in school, doesn't help them get better grades. Helps the teachers' unions, all right? Helps the teachers, but what is important here? To make teachers rich, to make the teachers' unions stronger, or to educate children?
It's supposed to be to educate children. And yeah. I have to tell you, when you look at, this is where parental choice would actually benefit teachers. If you look at the salaries of, say, superintendents, all the way down to the 8th assistant superintendent for administrative streamlining, they're making gobs of money. So are administrators. If we had parents in charge of where the money goes, schools would have an incentive to pay the talent first. And the number one in-house school talent would be the teachers. So they would benefit too. But again, I think we should put parents in charge of money. And in that kind of a competitive system, more money doesn't necessarily mean better. It means we have to put the right people in charge.
All right. Vicki Alger, Senior Fellow at the Independent Women's Forum. Vicki, as usual, we always appreciate your time with us. Please tell our audience how they could follow your work and work of the IWF.
Well, please visit us for information about education, economics, all sorts of public policies, right at www.iwf.org.
All right, Vicki Alger, thank you so much for joining us. Take care and God bless.
Thank you.
Thanks, Vicki.
And this is the Conservative Commandos radio show with Dr. Wright, Dr. Nasir Shaikh, and yours truly, Rick Trader. Don't go away. We will be back with more right after this break.
Have you been leasing a property for your business or renting storage space? Are you tired of paying rent year after year? Call the experts at General Steel to own a building at up to 30% off now.
I'd been renting a building and paying someone else's mortgage, but General Steel showed me how I could own a space tailored to the needs of my business and for less than renting.
Call General Steel now at the number on your screen for our current building specials and to price your metal building system today.
My building's the dream I've had since finishing my house 14 years ago. I've been using it for a garage, workshop, and storage area for my tools and equipment, and I can't believe how great it turned out.
The economy is improving, and the price of steel is expected to rise. Stop waiting. It could cost you thousands. Call General Steel now to see how you can own for less than you thought. Stop waiting to start your business or expand your operation. Call General Steel now.
Call 877-484-7002.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call low-cost airlines. Their prices are direct from the airlines, and they're so low you can't find these fares published anywhere. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and great package deals anywhere around the world. Wherever you want to go, they can help you get there cheaply and with the best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call right now for the lowest travel prices anywhere and for great last-minute travel deals too.
Call 888-431-0562. That's 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562.
Friend, do you remember when it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank to expand a business, go on vacation, or buy a new car? Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business, according to The Secret War, a shocking new research report. I just read it. And folks, I was amazed to learn why banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get The Secret War free. Just call the number on the screen, no charge, from the folks at Swiss America, and get this. Did you know simply spending cash today may be enough to have you branded as a potential criminal? That's right. The new war on cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. The Secret War is yours free, so call the number on the screen and you can tell them Pat Boone gave you the number.
Have you been leasing a property for your business or renting storage space? Are you tired of paying rent year after year? Call the experts at General Steel to own a building at up to 30% off now.
I'd been renting a building and paying someone else's mortgage, but General Steel showed me how I could own a space tailored to the needs of my business and for less than renting.
Call General Steel now at the number on your screen for our current building specials and to price your metal building system today.
My building's the dream I've had since finishing my house 14 years ago. I've been using it for a garage, workshop, and storage area for my tools and equipment, and I can't believe how great it turned out.
The economy is improving and the price of steel is expected to rise. Stop waiting. It could cost you thousands. Call General Steel now to see how you can own for less than you thought. Stop waiting to start your business or expand your operation. Call General Steel now.
Call 877-484-7002.
Hello everyone, we're broadcasting live from CPAC 2019 at the National Harbor here in Baltimore, and we're going to be speaking with Patrice Onwuka, who's a senior policy analyst with the Independent Women's Forum. She is a political commentator. She's worked in advocacy and communications for more than a decade on women and youth issues, regular guest on Fox News. She hosts her own blog, New Agenda for Black Women, on Newsmax.com. She's a Caribbean immigrant, proud American citizen. She's a wife and a mother of 2 boys. Well, Patrice, welcome to the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Thank you so much. It's good to be here in person.
Absolutely, yes. Well, thank you so much. Well, listen, with everything going around, I want to ask you a few questions here, basically. One of which is, one of the topics is women and the wall.
Yes.
Where does that breakdown occur? And is it segmented along sort of, let's say, ethnic lines? Or is it just all one sort of demographic all put together?
Well, generally women are not a monolith, so they're going to think differently about different issues. But when we talk about border security, women want to see it. And when you look at even the emergency, the crisis at the border, and the president's emergency declaration, a plurality of women actually support the president on this, which is really interesting. You're not hearing that in the news. Rasmussen just found that 50% of suburban women support the president when it comes to the emergency declaration. So, women look at the border and they look at the not just illegal crossing, but the human costs, the human trafficking, women, kids who are being taken advantage by smugglers, drug smuggling, all of those things that are coming across our borders. And they're saying, what, it's time for us to deal with, it's time for our leaders here in Washington to deal with this issue. President Trump is the first president who's willing to take it on as an issue. And so I think you're going to see increasing numbers of women start to be vocal about it.
Well, that's great. Well, one of the things that we're also talking about is that it's the angel moms that have suffered. And these are basically, I would say, this is, until it, God forbid it happens to anyone. And these are horrific, horrendous acts that have occurred. And I'd say that the blood stains have been because of the government officials, both parties, Republican and Democrat, that have allowed, illegal aliens to sort of come across our borders and to commit these heinous acts. So one of my questions is that, how does, for example, in terms of, where women in security and border issues, where is that sort of falling upon, let's say, for Latino women and for black women as well?
So I think the black and Latino women, I think they're probably maybe a little bit less supportive than generally white women when it comes to border security. But I think everyone recognizes that we need to have safe communities. We need to have safe neighborhoods. And you brought up the angel families, those moms who've lost their kids. I think that's the unreported story. I mean, when we talk about being a nation of laws, but also of compassion, it's nice to be compassionate for immigrants. And by the way, I'm an immigrant and I'm a naturalized citizen. I came here legally. We did it through the right way. And so you can be compassionate for people coming to this country who just want opportunity or who may be fleeing violence, but you also have to have compassion for those people who suffer the consequences of bad policy, particularly at the state and local level, that welcomes people who are here to do wrong things, people who are here who are murderers, people who have been deported before and because of loopholes are able to come back in or stay here without being apprehended. And I think you're right. I think that's flown under the radar. And if we want to be compassionate, let's be compassionate for American citizens and also for communities that are here legally who are taken advantage of by people who are violent coming across our border.
And I think that one of the reasons why it's been so underreported is because this is happening to what you call like your average normal citizen. It's happened here. It hasn't happened to somebody, at the higher levels of government. I've always said that if something like this were to have happened to a House of Representative member, a senator, a governor's child or whatever, I think you would have a lot more in terms of that. I mean, do you agree with that?
I think that their eyes would certainly be open and it would make national news. Think also about the immigrant communities as well. MS-13, we're not too far from Maryland. That's where I live. And gang violence in immigrant communities is on the rise. But unfortunately, when you have illegal immigrants who are also gang members, they're taking advantage of the people in their own communities. That's no good. Also underreported. So we have to call attention to this. We have to hold our leaders accountable, and it's important that the White House is making this a priority.
Well, Patrice, for those out there in our listening and viewing audience, give us an idea. Independent Women's Forum. What are some of the things that you're working on right now, and what are some of the things that Independent Women's Forum, is it just women's issues or is it all issues?
You know our tagline, all issues are women's issues. Women don't just care about our bodies, we care about our purses, we care about wallets. 40% of American households is headed by a woman. She's the primary breadwinner. So we care about taxes, we care about tax refunds, we care about ensuring that we're getting as much out of our paychecks as possible. So at the Independent Women's Forum, we are a collection of women who deal with policy issues, and we help Americans understand what's going on. We dig into the numbers, but we also make it digestible. So you have talking points that you can share with your friends and your neighbors to push back on a lot of the narratives that we see. Everything from pop culture to taxes to tax reform, immigration issues. I personally cover issues related to race as well. The black community is doing fantastic, but you wouldn't believe that. You wouldn't know that if you just watch the news. You hear about Jussie Smollett and the racism of this country. Well, blacks are experiencing historically low unemployment, and thanks to this administration and a Republican-led Congress, we had criminal justice reform. That's going to be transformative at the federal level. So we cover all of these issues and more, and we make it in a way that women women will appreciate and be able to share with their other friends and family.
Well, speaking of that, you were talking about the Jussie Smollett issue in terms of that. How do you think that that's sort of affected race relations? And also just throwing out the big R or the little R word. I mean, this is something that the left uses all the time. What do you think the effect of now is this is going to have in the left stream media, what I call the Democratic State Party controlled media, the alt-left media? How do you think it's going to play out? Or do you think that this story will die down? They'll just sort of, shove it under the rug, so to speak, and it'll be business as usual?
It's gonna die down. It's gonna be shoved under the rug, as you mentioned. Interesting. Gallup last week looked at what Americans feel about race relations. After 9/11, 70% of Americans said it's great. You know what it is today? Maybe 40, 50%. And you know what? There's some inflection points. Black Lives Matter. and then the rise of President Trump. So it's that narrative that America is oppressive and racist to black people. Well, hello. Actually, black people are doing quite well as a group. And I mentioned criminal justice reform. That's going to be another issue that's going to be helpful to black communities. But when you've got hoaxes and stories like this, the media latches onto it because it promotes that narrative. We have to do our part as conservatives to push back and say, no, actually, these are the numbers. This is what you're experiencing in real life. Don't buy the fake line.
You know, that's so true. I mean, this administration, this President Donald Trump, has done more for individual. I mean, we talk about the left with identity politics, and unfortunately, they always say perception is reality, and sometimes you've got to fight the fight with the wordings that the other side uses. But this administration has done so much in terms of, like you said, for Latinos, the unemployment rates, you know, that just basic record unemployment rates, you know, in terms of employing them. Same thing for black Americans. And I would dare say, you know, any other ethnic group that's out there as well. So that's underreported. So intentionally, you know, and even I would say for some of the stations, okay, that we think would be leaning conservative, leaning right, you know, they always have the but. So, so what other issues is, well, you know what, they're telling me here that we've got to wrap this up. So tell us, Patrice, how can our viewers sort of follow your work and follow the work of the Independent Women's Forum?
Absolutely. So if you're on Twitter, at IWF. Go online at iwf.org to our website. And if you're interested in the stuff I put out, on Twitter, follow me at Patrice Pinkfile. Patrice Pinkfile. But, you know, I'm writing about this stuff every day, trying to educate Americans and help them understand what's really going on.
Patrice, thank you so much for being a guest here at Conservative Commandos radio show. Thanks so much, okay?
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call low-cost airlines. Their prices are direct from the airlines, and they're so low you can't find these fares published anywhere. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and great package deals anywhere around the world. Wherever you want to go, they can help you get there cheaply and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call right now for the lowest travel prices anywhere and for great last-minute travel deals too.
Call 888-431-0562. That's 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562.
Hello and welcome back here to the Conservative Commandos radio show and TV network as well. We're broadcasting live from CPAC 2019 at the Gaylord National Convention Center in Baltimore, Maryland. I happen to be one of your hosts. My name is Dr. Nasir Shaikh, and our guest today is Mr. Dale Wilcox, who happens to be with the Immigration Reform and Law Institute. He's the Executive Director and General Counsel for them. Dale, welcome to the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Thank you for having me.
Well, great. Well, you know what? I guess they've given me something here that you want to talk about, and it's something that's near and dear to my heart because I am a second-generation American born here, but my parents came here legally back in the late 60s or whatever. So immigration now is obviously it's always been a topic, but obviously in the last couple of years, it's touched a lot of buttons, both good and bad or whatever. So this article that you wrote, I mean, this is amazing. Sanctuary State, California, failed to honor over 5,600 ICE detainers. Can you give our listening audience and viewing audience an idea what exactly is an ICE detainer and why is that so important and what are they doing with them?
Sure, absolutely. Anytime anybody's booked into a jail, American citizen, illegal alien, whatever, you're fingerprinted at the time of booking. Those fingerprints are sent to the FBI. The FBI sends it over to the Department of Homeland Security. Homeland Security sends what's called a detainer request when they find an illegal alien to the local county sheriff saying, please hold that individual for 48 hours. We're coming to get them so that we can deport them. So what our investigation found was over a 2-year period, California law enforcement agencies have ignored 5,600 ICE detainer requests.
Over what period is that?
That was over a 27-month period. So basically all of 2016 and 17. And California's new sanctuary statewide law just went into effect January 2018. So that number certainly has shot up since then. And what's most egregious about this, 3,400 of that number were level 1, level 2 threat assessments by ICE. We're talking about people who have committed murder, kidnapping, sexual assaults, and whatnot. So California law enforcement agencies are releasing criminals back out onto the streets.
Okay, so this is something that whenever you're at a dinner, you're talking with friends or colleagues, and they say they're not releasing, how they've been arrested. So my question I ask is, so they've been arrested.
Yes.
They've been detained. They're in a jail. How are they being released? I mean, are we talking within days or weeks? How are they being released?
Yes, sure. Anytime they are eligible for bond, and most people are able to bond out, unless obviously you've committed the most heinous, you're a serial killer, or there's some reason you can't bond out. Most people bond out. Well, see, sheriffs are not holding them. Once they're eligible to bond out, they post bond, they walk out the door. Also,
on their own recognizance, I suppose.
Well, if they've posted money, whatever they've posted, but then they disappear into the interior. They're not going to show up. And then also you have the situation where people have served their time and ICE submits a detainer, hey, let us know when that individual is going to be released after they've done their time so we can be at the jailhouse to pick them up. And California law enforcement agencies are ignoring that request also. And this has real consequences. As we saw last week in Napa County, I don't know if you've seen the video of the illegal alien who took a shot at a deputy sheriff out in Napa. And thankfully, she was not killed. She was able to unload her gun, pull her gun out and unloaded it into the alien, and he did not survive. But that's usually not the case. Back Christmas of last year, you had a police officer killed, Newman, California police officer killed. He was also had been through the system, and ICE had never been contacted. He killed the police officer, or allegedly. He might still be going through the court proceedings. We'll say allegedly killed the police officer. So this has real consequences. The Napa Valley case I had mentioned, that individual, 4 detainer requests, 4 separate times he was arrested for various crimes. 4 detainers were issued on him over the years, and California law enforcement agencies ignored those detainers. And in fact, he had been deported 3 times in the past. So this sanctuary...
Let me get this straight. This person that with 40 times he's been arrested. So did he have to... He was arrested on 4 different occasions.
Yes.
Each occasion he somehow posted bail?
Yeah.
Or bonded?
Yeah, or served his time.
Served his time.
And got out and was released back out into the community to harm other people. Some of the charges against him were assault on a police officer. I believe there was an alcohol-related charge. This is absurd. It has real-world consequences, these sanctuary policies. They're dangerous. They're not compassionate. They're not humane. People are losing their lives.
And the thing is that and I was just speaking with someone else on a previous interview, and I said, this is happening usually to what we say, just an ordinary, flyover America, ordinary, hardworking Americans, angel moms, angel dads, just like you talk about the police officer Singh, I believed, Christmas Day, family, no one's going to know about it. And until this, you would never want this tragedy, this horrific, these murders, these heinous acts to occur to anyone. But sometimes you think about it and goes, it hasn't touched the people who are making the laws. It's the ones who are making the laws, and it's affecting everybody else. So give us an idea. This is just in California.
Yes.
Do you have any statistics for other states?
Oh, yes. We have more information that we will be releasing. Here recently, we released on just one county in New Jersey, Middlesex. 92 detainers ignored in a 2-year period, and one of those detainers was for an individual who subsequently went to Missouri and allegedly, the trial is still proceeding, killed 3 people. So this is happening all over the United States.
You hear these stories over and over again. The left-stream media, what I call the Democratic state party-controlled media, the all-left media, they don't report it. It just, unless it makes some national news network or whatever, and then even then they downplay it. So one of the things I'd like to ask you, Dale, is that you hear this story all the time that's being reported that sanctuary cities, they are actually safer than non-sanctuary cities. Is that a fallacy?
Oh, absolutely, it's a fallacy. And in fact, Kate Steinle, do you remember that case where Kate Steinle was killed by an illegal alien who had stolen a gun from a federal agent? He stated to police, I went to San Francisco because I knew they were a sanctuary city. So sadly, these sanctuary policies prey on the most vulnerable, and they prey on legal immigrants. Legal immigrants don't want these criminals released back into their communities. My wife is an immigrant. She's from Brazil. So she's astounded that people would want to release criminals back out into the community. They left countries where it's unsafe to walk around on the street, and that you have these thugs out there. She doesn't want them here.
So give us an idea, what else are you working on at Immigration Reform and Law Institute? What other things are you doing besides just wondering about what's happening with these ICE detainers?
Sure. This is, my organization is principally a not-for-profit law firm. So we've been very busy defending the president's policies all around the country. And in fact, we're filing a brief next week in the Supreme Court in the census case. You know, Trump wants to put the citizenship question back on the census that has existed since 1820. He was challenged. A court enjoined him from doing so. Now it's in the Supreme Court. We're involved in all the sanctuary city cases where the United States has sued California because of its law. We're involved in the DACA cases. We have plenty to do. There are plenty of lawsuits. The National Declaration of an Emergency last week. There were 5 lawsuits filed in a weekend. So we principally go around the country representing America First immigration policies in court.
Listen, we're here at the CPAC 2019. We're here with Dale Wilcox, and he is the Executive Director and General Counsel for them. Dale, let everyone know how they can sort of follow your work, follow more work at the Immigration Council.
Yeah, sure. We maintain a website. It's irli.org. And we're on Twitter at Early Law, IRLI Law. And we would be glad to hear from people, and we would appreciate your support.
Great. Thanks so much. This is Dr. Nasir Shaikh here. We're at CPAC at 2019 with our guest here, Dale Wilcox. We'll be right back after these words from our sponsor.
Dish TV is better than cable TV. Here's why. Dish has the nation's lowest TV price, along with an award-winning DVR that can skip commercials, record 8 shows at once, and get access to thousands of movies at your fingertips. Cable simply can't even compare. So the smart choice is to cut the cable and get Dish. Plus, you get all these great TV features, free HD DVR upgrade, free installation, and free movie channels. Say goodbye to cable and get more with Dish TV. 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. As an added bonus, you can switch to Dish now and receive a $50 Visa gift card. So call now and get Dish TV. Call 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. That's 877-290-7764. Limited time offer, 24-month commitment and credit qualification required. Cancellation fee, monthly equipment fees, and other restrictions apply. Promotion can change at any time.
Hello and welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show here, broadcasting live from CPAC 2019. If you hear the noise in the background, that's just all the buzz that's going around here. I happen to be one of your hosts here. My name is Dr. Nasir Shaikh, and with us we have our guest, Mr. Dan Gainor. He is the Vice President of Business and Culture at the Media Research Center. He heads up both the MRC Business and the Culture departments, including their popular Soros project. He's a veteran editor with more than 3 decades of experience. He's been on all the shows, Fox News, CNN, CBS, NBC, all the shows that you know about, Blaze TV, and he's also has a regular spot on One America News Network. Mr. Gainor, welcome to Conservative Commandos radio show.
The best part of the CPAC is always seeing the people you know in person. So it's always good to be on with Conservative Commandos in person.
Great. Well, listen, before we got on here, I was going to ask you what was the subject that you felt that you wanted to discuss. So you said something about online censorship.
Oh, well, that's because more than, I guess about 2 years ago now, I was really harassing my boss Brent Bozell that this would become a growing problem, and he did what he always does and assigned then the extra work to me, and we came out with a big project, big report last year pegged to the congressional hearings about censorship, and we launched our censorship project, and now it's called MRC Tech Watch, and I'm in charge of that. And what we do, we monitor the Facebook, Twitter, Google, YouTube, pretty much the way we monitor ABC, CBS, NBC, and CNN. And what we do, we look for biases. So just this week, we came out with a piece talking about 113 prominent conservatives or people who are willing to say the apolitical things that get you in trouble on Twitter that have been banned, suspended, somehow restricted in their speech because of that. And that includes even a Canadian liberal academic who got in trouble and got suspended and then banned from Twitter for daring to say men are not women.
Well, we've heard this so often that now they're hiding behind, that they're a platform of ideas, a platform of diversity, and we see that doesn't happen because, just as you mentioned, you take a look at the seconds, the minutes, the hours of tape roll that are out there for people, for example, like on Twitter and Facebook. And if a conservative makes those comments, immediately they're censored, they're banned, they can't go on their devices for 3 to 4 days. Why is that not happening on to the liberals? I mean, what are you looking in that respect?
Well, foundationally, these are liberal companies created in Silicon Valley, hiring liberals that created extremely aggressive liberal policies about so-called hate speech. They're vague, they're massive, they've been used to restrict almost anything, including ultimately at one point the Declaration of Independence. So there's some words in there I didn't like, Declaration of Independence. So I mean, that's, and I think it's very clear at some point they're going to be used against the Bible or Bible passages. And now it's really dawning on people how dangerous this is. At the time, it's going global. Now, they claim their platforms, but platforms would have not only the advantages of the Communications Decency Act, Section 230, but they would also not work in conjunction with governments. Well, Section 230 might be challenged about the way it's designed, whether it protects them or not, but Facebook is already working with France, the French government, about speech, and the head of the UN just came out and said they want to create a global regimen against hate speech. So that is no longer just, hey, these ordinary companies. That is now governments using this to restrict speech. Michelle Malkin just got a warning that she had violated Pakistani blasphemy laws on Twitter. I mean, that's the level of insanity that we've taken our First Amendment rights in this country, dumped them out online, and then these companies don't believe in them. They believe in safe spaces, not freedom.
Well, that's the thing. When I saw that myself, I was wondering, I said, here you are living within the boundaries of the United States of America. You're protected by the First Amendment. No other country's laws, sovereign or otherwise, should be able to be coming into the arena of these companies to basically say that you're violating the rights of another country. You may be insulting them, you may be not saying things that they don't like, but the whole idea of the First Amendment protection is that we've always said is that the reason is not because of my speech, but because it should protect your speech that I may not want to hear.
Well, I agree with that 100%. That used to be the policy of the American left. That was, I grew up with that policy. I grew up with the ACLU protecting, no one likes that.
Where is the ACLU now?
They've given up. The ACLU believed in protecting even detestable Nazis. No one likes Nazis. Nazis are scum. Okay, but even the ACLU protected the idea that they could march in Skokie, Illinois, which was a Jewish community, had a lot of Holocaust survivors in it. If that's protected, you protect the worst speech so that you protect the other speech as well. Now, after Charlottesville, the ACLU, which protected Nazis and other people marching in Charlottesville, had an internal rebellion, and now they they've backed off their traditional belief in the First Amendment. So that means the left no longer believes in the Second Amendment or pretty much any part of the First, because they don't believe in religious speech, free press for conservatives, assembly. They don't believe in any of it. And that is dangerous. Once we bow to the heckler's veto of our speech, we don't have freedom.
Well, you're true. And you know what? The left always love to spout how they love diversity. They love diversity of people, diversity of food, diversity of culture, diversity of multiculturalism. You know what they don't like the diversity of? Diversity of thought.
Oh.
That's not in their playbook. When you start thinking for yourself, diversity, as far as the left is concerned, goes out the window.
Well, and that's the media just as bad. And the media believe in checkbox diversity. Oh, you're this category, you're this racial category, you're this religion, you're this sexual orientation or gender, whatever. But then you tell them, well, by the way, also you have to have opinions, different opinions, and they go, oh, no, we don't. By having these other people with different opinions. No, you don't. You pick people who look differently than you and think just the same. And this is the problem with the American media. So, journalists hate it when you throw that back in their face. They're lousy at the first part of diversity. They underrepresent Hispanics, African Americans, women in leadership, etc., in journalism. And then you turn around and say, oh, by the way, you also have to consider conservatives. And they're like, no, we don't. It's because it's anathema to them. They think our opinions, the opinions of everybody here today, are just wrong, and they refuse to do it.
Well, we're here at CPAC 2019 speaking with our guest here, Mr. Dan Gainor, who is with the Media Research Center. And Dan, why don't you let everyone know, what are you working on now at MRC, and how can people sort of follow you, follow MRC and the work that you guys are doing there?
Oh, that's first of all, they should follow the MRC at newsbusters.org, and I write a weekly column. In fact, when CPAC is all done today, I'll be going back home and working on my worst of the week column for Fox, and that appears on foxnews.com on Sundays. And I also urge people to follow me on Twitter at Dan Gainor, DanGainor, and that's for full contact Twitter.
Okay, great. Well, there you have it. We're speaking with Dan Gainor, Vice President of Media Research Center. And we're going to take a break here to go to our sponsors, and we're going live here from CPAC 2019. Thanks so much.
AM/FM 24/7 Roku channel broadcasts all of our shows on demand. To ensure reliability, we store and stream our content on the same servers as Netflix and Amazon. Our Roku channel is free to use, and anyone owning one of the more than 10 million Roku devices can watch our channel at no cost whatsoever. If you have a television show or are thinking about producing a show, you can be a part of AM/FM 24/7's Roku channel. Watch our great shows on your Roku device. It's free and more reliable than cable TV. Are you stuck with a timeshare? Did you attend the presentation and were seduced and enticed into buying that great vacation and investment? Now you're in the terrible position of trying to figure out a way to get out of that mess. You're not alone. For over 15 years, BuyYourTimeshare.com has been helping people like yourself get out of timeshare ownership. The fact is, there is no resale market. Unscrupulous telemarketers call you and say they have buyers waiting, and the next thing that happens is you give them hundreds of dollars for an ad, and you'll never hear from them again. Another fact is that an identical timeshare to yours is being offered on eBay for $1, and no one is buying it. If you want out of your timeshare, I urge you to go to BuyYourTimeshare.com or call them at 877-94-HELP-ME. That number again is 877-94-HELP-ME. BuyYourTimeshare.com. That's BuyYourTimeshare.com. 877-94-HELP-ME.
Friend, do you remember when it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank to expand a business, go on vacation, or buy a new car? Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business, according to The Secret War, a shocking new research report. I just read it. And folks, I was amazed to learn why banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get The Secret War free. Just call the number on the screen, no charge, from the folks at Swiss America. And get this, did you know simply spending cash today may be enough to have you branded as a potential criminal? That's right. The new war on cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. The secret war is yours free, so call the number on the screen and you can tell them Pat Boone gave you the number.
Well, Nasir, it is just about that time to wrap things up. I want to thank you for sitting in today as my co-host. And Nasir, how can our listeners and viewers follow you when you're not here on Conservative Commandos?
Well, they certainly can check out some of my articles on the www.ccrshow.com site as well. They can also go to Facebook, see some of my posts over there on The Nasir Shaikh Show. That's The Nasir Shaikh Show. Or follow me at Twitter, which is my Twitter handle is at Nasir Shaikh Show. That's at Nasir Shaikh Show.
But for right now, we are out of time. We got to run. We got to go. Take care. God bless. We'll see you tomorrow on TV and on radio.